All right, it was an amazing Monday night. Number 24 Louisville came here to Chapel Hill to take on number 18 North Carolina. It was going to be interesting to what would happen. People asked me, what do you think was going to happen in this game? And I was like, honestly, depends on what Louisville team shows up from beyond the three-point arc. They didn't shoot it that well. It was about 33%. Carolina absolutely dominated it in the second half. Their defense clamped in, and Louisville did not make a shot in the first 7 minutes of the second half. That was enough for Carolina to get the win 77-74.
Well, we've seen what happens when Louisville's threes go in, a.k.a. when they played NC State. We've seen what UNC looks like when none of their shots go in when they played NC State, kind of the triangle all coming back in a full circle here in Chapel Hill. And Chris, honestly, I think for me, I was just impressed that UNC came away with two strong energy and effort performances in a row, because
For sure.
where were we after the NC State game? UNC might lose the rest of their games.
Yeah.
It was kind of the sentiment if they at least didn't get Henry Vesar back, and they did against Syracuse, and he was a huge impact in that game. And in this one, it was Seth Trimble with the career-high 30 points.
It was an amazing night for him, but I want to take a big step back, have a 30,000-foot view. There's a lot of Carolina fans, for some reason, that feel a little bit down on their team. After this win, that makes them 5-1 versus the AP top 25 teams. They have a win against Louisville, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and like their only loss was against Michigan State. As far as AP top 25 teams. That's really big for Carolina. I mean, they had another one. I'm missing it right now off the top of my head.
No notes out here.
No notes, but we will keep it roll. Oh, Virginia. It was a good win against Virginia. That was something that they needed this to solidify, what their March could potentially look like as far as seeding is concerned, and also just even, making it to March. I think this team showed what they could possibly be, and they played a lot more inspired. It made you wonder, where was this during the NC State game, right? No, Henry Vesar didn't play in that game, but there were stretches he wasn't in this game, and they didn't really need him out in the court. And Louisville, you could argue, is a little bit better than NC State, and they absolutely took it to this team and ended up getting this big-time win here at home.
Hey, look, they were down in the first half.
Yeah.
Louisville led by as many as 10 points in that first half, and Michael Brown is getting hot, and that's the last guy you want to get hot. See the NC State fans when he dropped 45 points on you, and he led Louisville with 24 in this game, but it was Trimble who was even better, and Trimble who was aggressive. And that's what, the takeaway from the NC State game, when you see Trimble with just 4 points, and none of the guards could get anything going, and that's without Vesar. But without Caleb Wilson, you're going to need more from your guards. You need more from your senior leader. And it was at halftime of the Syracuse game that Hubert Davis told us that he told Seth Trimble straight up, you've got to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
And he was aggressive from the start in this one. And he wasn't just aggressive, he finished. Because this is a guy that has like this incredible skill where he can break down defenders, get to the rim. It's a matter of, does he finish at the rim? And he did throughout this one. And they needed every bit of it, because they got up 16 points in the second half. This place in a frenzy after Trimble gets a fast break dunk.
Yeah.
And then it's the slow bleeding death that we've seen before. Syracuse in this building nearly erased a 32-point deficit, and Louisville got it to 2 in the final seconds. But I never really felt, Chris, that they were in danger of losing it.
Right.
And some of that's because they made just enough free throws to win as well.
You knew it was going to be a special night for Seth Trimble, where in the first half he made a three-pointer, and then in the media area I kind of look up to everybody like, wait a minute, that's his first three he's made since he made a three against Duke, and to win that game. And it absolutely was. Like, he didn't attempt one in the Syracuse game over at Syracuse, and he was 0 for the other games in between, and he hit one, and then all of a sudden he started really finding his offense, and 20 of those 30 points coming in the paint for Seth Trimble. Like, what you were saying before, he found a way to break down Louisville's defense and was able to do it. I mean, Henry Vesar, we spoke to him after the game. He's like, he was due for one at some point, because he knows what type of player that he could be when he is, aggressive on the floor, which is big for Carolina. The other big thing for Carolina, and you can't, overstate this enough, Henry Vesar being on the court makes them a difference maker. I thought that with Louisville's big, Sananda Frew, and you had the other kid, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, no notes right now, but they really couldn't do anything on the floor when Vesar was there. Defensively, Vesar, seemed to be able to alter shots. Louisville had a hard time finishing in the paint. A lot of times because Vassar was there and just was able to get those shots to go in awkward directions, kind of like how Kaman Malowach had an impact on the ACC last year for Duke. I felt like Vassar had that impact on Louisville. And then on the other end of the floor, nobody could really stop him, scoring in the paint, especially when he was rolling hard to the basket or even stepping back for threes. Louisville just really had no answers outside of just taking more threes themselves. And I think that kind of hurt them a little bit in this game. They never found an offensive rhythm besides Conwell or Michael Brown stepping back and taking threes, honestly.
They attempted like 35 or something in the game. It was, that's modern basketball, right? Live and die by the three. But I agree with you. I didn't think they really had an answer inside. But there was like another weird stat was that Louisville out-rebounded UNC, and that's Hubert Davis's tell-all for what he thinks the most determining factor is for winning. And then just going back to Hubert Davis for a little bit, it's basically like stock watch with him now and his job security, whether it's real or just how the fans perceive it, because I think, his job is safe, but then you say that and then you see games like the NC State game and you're like, well, yeah, okay, Caleb Wilson isn't in there, Henry Vassar isn't in there, but it's the totality of it. And then maybe it's silly now that we're doing stock watch game by game, but it feels like he's back in the good graces, and for good reason, because these were pretty big responses here. The Syracuse game, the Louisville game, you kind of calmed the waters of how they were going to finish the season. You don't have to worry as much about their seeding in the ACC tournament. At this point, they've beaten Virginia, they've beaten Duke, they've beaten Louisville, they've got Clemson coming up. I mean, they have shown they could beat the best in this conference. And their resume, to your point, with all these AP Top 25 wins they have and all the Quad 1 wins they have, there is no doubt they're surefire in the tournament, and I would say above probably the 8-9 seed line now, no matter what happens the rest of the way.
I would think that Hubert Davis's job is very much so secure. There are things that you may not like about certain outcomes of certain games this year, but I'm gonna make sure I have this right because I do have this note, because it's something that I tweeted the other day or retweeted that somebody put out on Twitter about Hubert Davis. Let me make sure I have this correctly. Hubert Davis is the first men's basketball coach in ACC history to win 20 or more games in each of his first 5 seasons. Roy Williams didn't do that. Dean Smith didn't do that. 2 guys who have their names in and on this building, right? It's going to be very hard to get rid of a guy like that after that type of year. And when you have something like that, nobody in ACC is. Coach K didn't do that, right? So, maybe you have to wait till next year to do that if you really want him out of there. But if you kind of look at the landscape, like, no, Carolina isn't, always competing for that number one team in the country. They're not always getting the big recruit over Duke. They're not always that team that's making it deep into the NCAA tournament under Hubert Davis. He's also a first-time head coach, and he's learning on the job.
I mean,
right? So that's one of those things that, like, at some point you got to figure out that there's some patience that comes with this. And, overall 20 plus wins in each of his first 5 years. You got to think that the guy can stick around at least for 6.
I agree with you. It's a complicated case. I look at it like, okay, yeah, like 20 wins, 5+ seasons, sure, but you missed the tournament in one of them, where you return basically the entire lineup that made it to the national championship. You probably should have missed the tournament last year. There's all these moments, and there's all this nuance in between that. And then it's also like you inherited the keys to a Ferrari here. Like, a lot of people could be driving this car at that pace, and it's a question of, is he getting the most out of it? And I think I would say he hasn't gotten the most out of it, despite the high highs. Now, does that mean he shouldn't coach here anymore, that you shouldn't have patience? I'm not necessarily saying that. It's a nuanced case. It's probably something that could be its entire own podcast. But for at least this season that we're in, I agree. When you step back from the totality of it, I mean, you could say, oh, he had Caleb Wilson. Well, he got Caleb Wilson to come here.
That's a part of coaching. Recruiting is a part of coaching.
Yeah, exactly. You could say the California road trip was an abject disaster.
Yeah.
Which it was, but they responded. And they beat Duke. You could say the NC State game was, again, another abject disaster.
It was.
Here they are again. They respond. So it's the response that you want to see, and that's what made the California road trip so concerning to me when they didn't respond in the Cal game after the Stanford game. But, you know, when they respond like this against Syracuse, they respond like this against Louisville. And now we're through the heat of it here. We're like, now the Caleb Wilson return it's possible, right? Like, you know, he wants to come back.
Yeah.
We're expecting to get an update after some new imaging this week.
For sure.
Get some more definitive news on when he could come back. But typically breaks are like 4 to 6 weeks. So that will put them in line for the ACC tournament. And UNC back right where they should be, in contention to potentially win this conference. And that's what you want. When you're Hubert Davis, we're talking about this job. UNC should be in either the top of the ACC every year. They should compete for ACC titles, and they should not have to worry about making the NCAA tournament. And this year, we're looking at a check, and a check.
Caleb Wilson or not, whatever happens for the rest of the season, you still have to go against Clemson. You still have to go against Virginia. Oh, I'm sorry, did I have that right?
Clemson, Virginia Tech, Clemson.
Virginia Tech, Clemson, and then Duke. And then you have ACC tournament. And then you have the NCAA tournament. No matter what happens, you're going to face higher level of competition from here on out. It's not going to be a lot of cupcakes in that. What you brought tonight versus Louisville is how you need to show up for every single game for the rest of the season. Whether that's on Hubert Davis, whether that's on the players, whether that's on the rest of the coaching staff, that is the only part of Carolina's game that I find concerning, is that sometimes they just don't get off the bus. And so whatever that is, if Hubert is doing everything he can, but just the guys are just like, we just don't have it today. Sometimes that's the case, and we blame it on the coach, and the coach has done all he could do. We don't know what that is. However, everybody needs to look themselves in the mirror and understand what time of the year it is. We're recording this on February 23rd. It's about to be March. Yep. Everything from here on out is vastly important. Literally, after the next 3 games of the regular season, every game could be your last.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue playing with this group and try to do something special with a special freshman who's going to be a top 3 lottery pick, with Henry Vassar, more than likely going to be a first-round pick, and then Seth Trimble in his senior year? Do you want to try to do something special? What you brought tonight versus Louisville is what you need to bring every single night for the rest of the season.
Stock watch. Watch that Virginia Tech game. Yeah. Could be a flat spot when we're having this conversation all over again. And it was funny to see talk about the current coach looking over his shoulder at future coaches. Mac Brown in this building, literally sharing the same stage with Bill Belichick.
Man.
Proving that, past, former, current coaches here at Carolina can get along.